Need some suspension work and shocks and brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, rear end.
Ka-chow.
Just don't see no cars! It works! I love this button!
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
All right, welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Car podcast, coming at you live from where? I don't even know.
Some magical place.
Some magical place that I don't think is ever described.
I don't think they ever mentioned where they're from. That's really weird.
I guess kind of Japan, kind of the U.S., though.
Yeah,
kind of ish.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's right. It is kind of Japan.
Today we're talking about the original Speed Racer cartoon.
So we don't know where we're coming
specifically the Mammoth Car episodes.
Cartoon Land. Yep, exactly.
So you can actually look it up on YouTube. There's the Mammoth Car Part 1 and 2. Should be like 22 minutes each.
Yep.
And so we're talking about the original Speed Racer cartoon today, which is super exciting.
Which is fun. Did you start the timer?
Oh no, I totally did not even start the timer.
Well, and then I have a little thing to talk about before we get into spoilers. So
okay.
I don't know if you have a game or something.
No, go for it.
So we are talking about the Mammoth Car. There's two. It's the race against the Mammoth Car.
Part 1 and 2.
Part 1 and 2. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Speed Racer, one of my all-time favorite. This is the one I grew up with, and this was actually a suggestion by your mom. So
okay.
But I was going to ask. So here's my trivia, or not my trivia, my game. I want you to tell me what each button on the steering wheel does.
Oh, well, that's convenient because I have them all right here.
That's
but let me try to do it. Let me try to do it by memory, though.
Try to do it by memory. Okay, so I'm going to go through each one. Of course, they're conveniently named A through G.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the first one is A. What is A?
A is the auto jacks.
Very good.
So that's the hydraulic lifts that he also uses to jump things.
Yes.
Which actually, this is a real thing. Some race cars actually have it's air pneumatic lifts on them, and it'll lift the car up off the ground to change tires. Yeah. I mean, it's like I saw a demonstration. It was on a Lamborghini Huracan race car.
Okay.
But it was a real jack, and I was like, oh my God, that's a Speed Racer thing.
That's so funny that they actually have that. So then so B, what is B?
Was it like belted tires?
Let's see.
Beaded
Special grip tires. Very good.
Yeah.
Belted grip tires. Very good. Very good. Grip tires. He can climb like sheer walls with this thing. It's amazing. C.
Ooh. This is where I start to lose it. I just remember the first two. C is it the chopping down trees? Okay.
Very good. Chopping down the cutters.
Giant saw blades
which are totally practical for any race car to have
where
giant
you're trying
saw blades.
There's a saying in racing, ounces make pounds. You try to shed off as many ounces as you can because at the end of the day that'll take pounds out of your car. I don't think saw blades are particularly in the weight budget.
Not totally realistic. So
no.
Totally get that on that. Okay, so
D.
that was very good. D. What is D?
H is the homing beacon. I thought homing pigeon.
Not quite.
No? Okay.
By the way, there's no H.
There's not?
It just goes up to G. Maybe we could build an H button.
D.
That would be pretty cool.
Is it something for underwater?
It can be used. It's partially used.
Oh, is it the dome?
It's the dome.
Yes!
Yeah, the dome. Very good. The dome deflector dome.
Okay.
Okay, so E. This is rarely used. E is rarely ever. I think I've only seen it in one episode.
Is it the periscope?
No.
Is it it's something for underwater, I thought.
No.
No? Okay.
No. That
what
one,
is it?
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
All right, so that one is the special illumination.
Oh,
it has
that's
lights.
spelled with an I.
I know.
Isn't illumination with I?
It is, but these really don't go by the letters.
Okay.
So they're not really supposed to. But here, so then we have F, which is
I don't even know.
Underwater.
Okay.
That's the underwater one. That has the oxygen in the canopy and the periscope.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Which I remember we had a toy version of the Mach 5 that had the periscope that came.
I was going to bring down I was going to bring down my toy Mach 5.
Yeah.
So I got plenty of those.
Yeah,
I have a lot of those. All right, and then G.
That's the homing pigeon,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's in the middle, and that is the homing pigeon. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
All in all. So yeah, I mean, very good on that. I don't know if we want to wait the 10 minutes for spoiler alerts because.
No, we can.
Okay. All right.
I have some other stats about the Mach 5, and then we can get into our
very good, by the
personal
way. You got a
stories
lot
and
of
stuff.
these.
Thanks. Well, I literally copied and pasted it today. So
you probably
yeah.
remember a few of those. Okay, well that's good. Yeah.
Oh, F is for on here. It says F is for Frogger mode.
Okay. Well, I think
E is for evening eye.
Yeah.
D is for deflector. C is for cutter blade. B is for belt tires. A is for auto jack. G is for gizmo. And then it says
Okay,
in
it's
parentheses, homing pigeon robot.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I think someone did that because to make it mnemonically accurate. Yeah,
alpha.
Yeah, so that you could remember them. But yes, that is because there's no real. It's funny because a lot of the letters, because this was a Japanese cartoon, a lot of the letters don't make any sense at all.
Right.
So.
So if we want to get into a little bit about the Mach 5 itself, there's not a whole lot that's known about the Mach 5 because it is a made-up car. Obviously.
Totally.
It's not
totally
based on any car. But from the Wikipedia page, it says that it does have a manual transmission because there's an episode about the secret engine or the special engine with the Model T. Apparently you see him shifting gears in that one. So
you do see him shifting gears. In Mammoth
manual.
Car, too.
Okay.
In this one, he's in. Yeah.
Anyway. It says capable of 250 miles an hour. However, someone on the wiki commented that in one of the scenes he is seen going 300 miles an hour. Are we sure it's not kilometers though?
It could be kilometers.
Because kilometers would make a lot more sense. Like 300 kilometers an hour is like fairly possible.
Even so, they do mention in this episode that the Mammoth Car can go.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have a whole thing about the Mammoth Car.
I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah.
But yeah, and then the other notable thing it said about the Mach 5 was no radio.
Oh yeah, there's
didn't have
no
a stereo.
radio. That's a good point.
Which honestly, not that big of a deal for the 1960s.
CD player. There's no.
God, there wasn't even.
There's no Navi. There's no navigation.
Nothing. There's no anything. If you've ever driven a car from the 60s, they barely have anything.
That's true. But no radio, no nothing.
But I do have a story. I have a childhood story about Speed Racer.
Okay, good.
If you want to get into that.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that before we get into
this is a story I share all the time. I think it's a really funny story and kind of is a good showing of why I hate sports.
Oh, okay.
So in 4th grade, football, like not neighborhood football, but like community football. I was in tackle football in 4th grade.
Yes.
And it would start a week before school would start.
Right.
So there's a week of football practices where you would have nothing to do during the day, and then you go to football practice at like 4 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
Before school started.
Right. Yep.
In August or whatever. And so I was on a tackle football team.
Yep.
And
I remember that well.
I had a whole day to kill beforehand.
Yeah.
I think because you and Mom worked and I
Yeah.
didn't have anything to do. So I ate mac and cheese and I just marathoned Speed Racer.
Oh, you did?
I just watched so many Speed Racer.
Yeah.
I think I watched the whole DVD that we have, which is like one of the first seasons.
Yeah.
And I ate a whole box of mac and cheese.
You did?
While sitting there in 4th grade.
Oh my god!
So I'm sitting there. So
by the way, we're great parents. We just leave you home alone eating mac and cheese, a whole
I
entire
remember
box
another
of mac
time
and cheese.
earlier.
It's good
this
parenting.
was
good parenting.
Watching Too Fast, Too Furious, eating mac and cheese. I
see a pattern here.
I bit something hard in the mac and cheese, and it was one of my baby teeth, and that like scarred me forever because I was like, "What the heck was that?" And I tasted iron, and
you've never had mac and cheese ever again.
I have mac and cheese so much. I dialed it back in the last year, but anyway, so I'm watching. I watched the whole season of Speed Racer. I'm also reading the Speed Racer books at this point.
Were you?
Yeah, we had.
That's cool. Yeah,
we had
there's
a couple of the
We-
books.
well,
Well, that's
one
what
right
you're
here.
reading out of was the book.
Yes.
For the steering wheel stuff. By the way, you should
correct.
you should close your phone screen because that's gonna burn the image into the screen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you just
Okay.
you don't have your phone auto lock.
No.
And I noticed you were sleeping the other night on the couch, and your phone was just on for like hours. And I'm like, that's not
whatever.
Good for it.
I live dangerously.
Yeah, I know.
That's
anyway. So I'm eating mac and cheese.
151 million. We can throw money around.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Okay.
So
You're eating mac and cheese,
and watching Speed Racer. And then it's time to go to football practice.
Yeah.
And I go to football practice, and I'm like, I'm not feeling great. I'm a fourth grader with a box of mac and cheese in my stomach.
Yeah.
And we start doing some hitting drills, and I'm like, Coach, I'm not feeling good, feeling good. So he's like, okay, you can sit down, whatever. So I sat out a couple of the things. I was like a little chubby kid. Like he was probably like, oh, this kid wants to like just sit down and be lazy, which like was true. And I also like didn't really respect my football coaches, but that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other thing.
They were just overly angry dads that had no other pastime, so they put their whole ego into a fourth grade football team.
They did. They had no right to earn your respect.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
That's when I lost hope in like sports.
Yeah,
like,
that
these
was
dads' whole personality is based off of the Detroit Lions little league football team.
It was like their fantasy football, but like they were making their kids do it. And I remember people putting their kids in as like the quarterback just because it was their kid and they wanted to. It was like, wow,
it was
that
so
totally sucks.
Stupid.
Yeah, that was stupid.
But anyway, so then I get back in and I'm like, I'm feeling a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then we start doing more hitting drills. There's it's called the Oklahoma drill, I think.
Okay.
Where it's basically just 1v1 tackling. I mean, there's no real strategic reason behind it, or at least for fourth graders there isn't.
Right.
It was basically just pitting two kids against each other.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, Coach, I really don't feel good.
Yeah.
So he was like, all right, jog it up to the porta potty, go use the bathroom or throw up or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, okay. I jog up to the porta potty. I crap my pants.
Did you?
I fully crap my pants, and I start crying in the porta potty. I'm in fourth grade.
Of course, I think there's been a lot of people that have cried in porta potties.
Probably, and so anyway. I'm panicking.
Yeah.
Because I had never crapped my pants before.
Oh sure.
I mean, obviously as a baby, but not in my elementary school life.
Yeah.
I remember
awful, terrible feeling.
I cracked the door open of the porta potty, and there was a guy standing there watching the other football team.
Oh, okay.
And I asked him to borrow his cell phone.
Really?
Because I didn't have a cell phone.
Oh, that's right. Well, that's true.
A, I didn't have a cell phone. B, I wouldn't have had it in my football pads.
True. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I remember it was a Motorola Razr. This is the time period. This was probably 2007.
Mm-hmm.
He slid the Motorola Razr through the thing, and I called Mom.
Yeah.
And Mom came and picked me up in the Chrysler Pacifica and took me home.
Did she?
Yeah. I crapped my pants during football practice from eating too much mac and cheese and watching Speed Racer all day.
I think there's a lesson in there for all of us.
Yeah, to slow down on the mac and cheese if you're going to watch Speed Racer.
Yeah. So we're past the mark,
we're past so we can now talk about some spoilers.
So first of all, I do want to say, above and beyond everything, I grew up with Speed Racer. This was my pick. Speed Racer was a huge influence in me, and I always thought it was so cool when I was a kid, and then so laughable as an adult. And I totally wanted you guys to see this and be, remember this stuff. And I've got car models, and I've got even a remote control Mach 5 car. I even have one. I know. It's way upstairs. It's
remote control. I don't remember a remote control.
Remote control.
I remember we had the bigger. I don't even know who made it. It wasn't like Playmobil. It wasn't Lego. It wasn't like Masato. It wasn't. It was a bigger model, and you could take the bubble dome on and off. You could plug the
you could totally do
saw blades into the front bumper.
It
came with Speed Racer and Chim Chim.
Yep.
And Spritle, I think.
Yes, I think I still actually have one in the box that I
You
saved.
do have one in the box, because then there's also one that you let us play with.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm sure we broke at some point.
There was, in fact, I bought several, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I bought one for you guys, one for me to have out, and then one to save in the box.
Yeah.
And I still have the one in the box. I still have the one that I had. It doesn't have all the parts. And then our dog, Mushi, actually.
Oh, wow.
No, it wasn't Mushi. It was our friend's dog who came over and ate Chim Chim. Ate the little
I remember
Chim
that.
Chim
I always
figure,
thought
and
that was Mushi.
I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
I can't believe you
Well,
let your
like,
dog eat Chim
He
Chim.
just like was
That's
just
the monkey in the show.
It was just like the lower legs.
Yeah,
wasn't
it wasn't any big deal. But it was
Yeah.
like, come on, that was my
Yeah.
collector thing. What are you eating Chim
Yeah.
Chim for? The monkey.
I remember
Anyway,
I
yeah,
also
so-
had Mini Mates. I have the
Yes.
Speed Racer and Racer X
Yes.
Mini Mates.
Yeah, very cool.
There was a couple Johnny Lightnings.
Yeah, remember I think I gotten some. There were knockoffs. Remember the knockoff ones? Anyway, there were knockoff ones that I got.
I
too.
remember.
But
well, I also remember when the 2008 movie came out. They did a
Yeah.
whole re-release of Hot Wheels, which we'll get into
exactly,
later.
yeah.
But yeah, I definitely remember having those as a kid. I remember growing up watching them. I remember reading the books because
Yeah.
the books are literally, it's almost like word for word what
Yeah,
the
probably,
episode
yeah.
is.
Yep.
Which is funny. That's actually how Speed Racer got its start, was comics.
Was it really?
Yeah,
Okay,
so this is Speed Racer is anime. Like,
Oh, is it really?
I never made that connection till I like started thinking about it. So
Oh.
anime, yeah. So anime is
It's
Japanese cartoons,
Right. Okay.
and it's sort of an art style, but also it's like these big ideas. It's a anime
Yeah,
is very
okay.
rarely
All
like
right.
rooted in like. When you watch anime, you shouldn't be skeptical.
Okay. All right.
Initial D is an anime. That's a lot of people get into that. Cowboy Bebop
Yeah.
is just got a Netflix
Okay.
adaptation.
I never thought of this as being anime. Never. Ever.
Yeah, so an anime always comes from manga, and manga
Manga.
is basically like the source material.
Oh.
It's like graphic comic books. That's why anime is in like a more
okay.
comic
All
book
right.
style.
Yeah.
There's always a manga that comes before it. And some animes divert from the manga,
Yeah.
but it's basically like book or movies that are made after books. It's like the Harry Potter books, you know. You can read those
true.
and then you can see the movies, and sometimes they're a little different. And
Do you remember Strong Bad? I don't know if
Yeah, of
anyone
course.
else
Yeah, yeah.
out there remembers Strong Bad.
HomestarRunner.com.
HomestarRunner.com. And Strong Bad and all that. And remember they did an anime version.
yes.
Do you want to
Yeah.
challenge? And then it
Yeah.
was just this great scene of this stuff. That
Well,
reminds me
so
of
it's
the anime,
cartoons that come from comic books, and so in
Right.
comic books, it's very big. It's very broad.
Oh, yeah.
I forget the name of it. There's an anime where all of the cities are on wheels.
Really?
And they like
Okay.
just drive across the desert. I forget for what reason. But
Okay.
then there's like battling cities like pull up next to each other, and they're like fighting city to city, but the cities are on wheels. Like
Okay, that's
it's
really
a whole thing. It's
bizarre, yeah.
basic. It's kind of like Mad Max Fury Road. Like that would have been a perfect anime.
Okay. Huh.
And so it started to make sense because, as we'll talk about with the Mammoth Car,
Yeah.
the Mammoth Car is this giant
Oh my
train
gosh.
off the
Boy, you
rails.
ta-
Which, if you try to like think about it analytically,
Yeah.
it makes no sense and will
Yeah.
just piss you off.
No, and do you want to talk about the Mammoth Car now? I mean,
Let's
obviously
talk about it in a second because I do have
Okay.
some backstory. So
All right,
Speed
good.
Racer was originally Mahagogo,
Mahagogo.
Machagogo, and online it said it had 3 goes, but I've heard it pronounced 2 goes. So Mahagogo or Mahagogo.
Yeah, I've heard it go go go.
Go go
So,
go.
yeah,
okay.
go go go. So, and I think go ahead, explain.
So the original manga was in 1966,
Okay.
and it was adapted for TV from 1967 and 1968. That's it.
Really?
That was the original run. They made 52 episodes
Huh.
of Speed Racer in a 2-year run, which I thought was really interesting. It was also later adapted in the 90s. They remastered them and brought them back onto TV.
Okay.
But they ended up, and there were 32 new episodes of Speed Racer. It was called Speed Racer X, but only 13 of those episodes were brought to the U.S. So there's
wow,
20-some
there's-
episodes that are in Japanese only. They were never dubbed for the U.S., yeah. Which also we
Was
talked
it-
about
do
off
my
air.
Speed Racer imitation.
Yeah.
Oh.
We talked about off air. I never realized this TV show was dubbed.
Oh,
Which
yeah,
is why
definitely, yeah.
a lot of the
Absolutely,
pacing is off,
Oh yeah,
to say the
and
least.
the whole thing that we always talk about, where they talk really fast and have no, there's like no, and then sometimes they'll talk really fast, but then there'll be a long pause.
Right.
So it'd be like, well, we got to go over there and we got to make sure that it's not. Yeah, I think that's okay. We'll do.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's, the way that they did the
Pacing of it is very strange. And what's interesting is that I always wonder how much is lost in translation.
Yeah.
I mean, quite literally.
Yeah.
Because I know for Initial D, in the anime of Initial D, there's a English dub. And they always talk about, his technique is so good. His technique.
right. Yeah.
There's not really a good translation from Japanese technique isn't really the right word. It's like there's a word for like your skill set and flow.
Okay, that makes sense.
Whoever translated it didn't really pick the right word, and so they're always like, "Oh, technique! His technique is so good."
Well, that's kind of like saying, his mojo. Well, mojo. How do you explain mojo? I mean, that's kind of
it's one of those
weird,
words that doesn't have a translation.
Right. Exactly.
But anyway, I thought that was interesting, and Yoshida was one of the creators. I don't know how to pronounce
it. It does look very familiar because I've seen the titles, the credits, like a billion times.
Is quoted as saying he got the idea from Goldfinger and Viva Las Vegas, which were the two top films in Japan for the 1960s.
Awesome. Because I don't know if you want to get into it now, but just real quick, my view of this is that was the Aston Martin, basically,
right,
with all the gadgets and gizmos.
We will get into
a
that
race car
later. Okay. I do have something on that.
All right, so I don't want no spoilers.
But the last thing I wanted to talk about, just like overall Speed Racer, before we get into these 2 episodes, was I found it was really interesting that this show came out in the late '60s, in Japan, when car culture wasn't really all that big in Japan.
It wasn't?
Not really. Okay. Japan wasn't really producing as many they weren't the automotive powerhouse that they are now back in the 60s.
Yeah.
Which is funny. The same year that this came out, 1967, was the first year of Mazda's Cosmo 110S, which was the first Mazda rotary car, which I think personally kind of looks like the Mach 5.
Okay.
It has a lot of similarities to the Mach 5.
Well, that's
But at this point, when the original showing came out, Honda hadn't produced a vehicle yet.
What?
Honda had built motorcycles at this point,
right, yes.
Which were huge in Japan and still are all throughout Asia.
Yeah.
Vietnam is pretty much all motorcycles and like 2 vans.
Yeah.
But Honda hadn't produced a 4-wheel car yet when Speed Racer came out.
Okay.
In 1969 was the N600, which is their first car, which had it was a motorcycle engine and basically a Mini Cooper shell. Mini Cooper looking shell. It wasn't shared with Mini, but I just thought that was interesting. Is that also over in China, Japan's neighbor, they didn't get cars till like the 80s. So
really,
so people were probably watching this. If they were watching it in China, they still were like 20 years from having their own cars.
Yeah.
It was just rickshaws and motorcycles and
all right.
Little 3-wheeler mopeds essentially, but nothing too crazy. So I just thought it was very interesting. We're very I guess fortunate here in the US that we've had a long car history.
Yes.
You can pretty regularly at car shows, you'll see cars from the 1920s, cars even from the 1910s, if you see the right Model T.
Right.
And so it made me just kind of think about it that like a lot of other countries aren't that way, that the car is a lot more recent of a technology than the rest of the world. And that's how it was with Japan. I mean, Japan, everything was wiped out in the 40s. So, you know.
Yeah. Here's a really... Every time we talk about in Japan, for some reason, and it's my age group, it's my generation, but there was a really, really horrible commercial. And the commercial went like this. This is really terrible. I think it's like racist. But it would start out, and this guy would be chopping a tomato with his hand, and it said, "In Japan, the hand can be used like a knife, but you can't chop it with tomato with it." And it was Ginsu knives.
Oh,
and if
weird.
anyone remembers Ginsu knives, it was like, but that doesn't work on a tomato.
I was just telling my friend about Ginsu knives.
Were you really?
Literally 2 nights ago.
I don't know if anyone out there remembers Ginsu knives.
Yeah. Shout out to my friend Caroline. She called me and we were just chatting and catching up and stuff. And she, at a Christmas party, got a knife sharpener.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She works for this big corporate place now, and she's 22. And
I think that's actually the name of the building, big corporate place.
And she's like, I don't even have knives to sharpen. And I got this giant knife sharpener.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was like, oh, you need to get some of those Japanese steak knives. Yeah, the Ginsu knives.
Ginsu knives, yeah.
So it's funny you bring that up.
No, it was always that was super, super famous. So anytime you say in Japan, that starts out that whole thing in my head. In Japan, the hand can be used like a knife. And I think that's really like, okay.
Yeah. Very stereotypical.
Yeah, it's like very cringeworthy now. But yeah.
It's also interesting seeing, I mean, I guess this might be kind of pompous coming from an American, but Japan has always had a slight fascination with our culture, and I think vice versa.
So, yeah, I think so.
But even today, like earlier today, like not even 6 hours ago,
yeah,
I was driving a Japanese domestic market Toyota Land Cruiser.
Okay.
So it was only sold in Japan, but someone had imported it to the States here. It still has English on most of the parts. The windows,
that's right. We talked
windows
about that before. Yeah, exactly.
Auto in English.
Right, exactly.
The climate controls, all the numbers and digits were all in English standard numbers and digits and all that stuff. It still had warning. Now, what's funny is that it'll say warning and then it says it in Japanese.
I guess because it's kind of important. So yeah,
but that sort of carries over to Speed Racer because it's a Japanese cartoon and was originally in Japanese, but all the characters are very American.
Yes, they are very American.
Their eyes are overly round.
Yes, overly round.
Yeah. I believe we'll get into it later. I believe the designers of who drew Speed Racer took his outfit choices from Elvis Presley.
Yes,
that's what I heard. That's what one of the things says. So.
I also think that they drew me as a child because I looked a lot like
you
Speed
look
Racer.
identical to Speed Racer when you were
a
kid.
We used to joke about that. My brother and I would joke that I was Speed Racer and he was Racer X.
Right, which works because he's the older brother.
True.
And,
yeah.
Moved away, so I guess
he moved away.
Counts.
He's the Racer X.
Yeah,
which is hilarious in this movie. By the way, we'll talk about it because like 50 times they mention the fact that Racer X, who's secretly Speed Racer's brother.
That's one of my notes in here. Is the announcer over announcing?
Oh, they explain things over and over and over. Yeah, you have to remember this is like for young kids, but yet. It goes through generations.
Yeah,
because there's some fun stuff too for adults.
I wonder if some of that voiceover stuff was added for the American version.
Yeah, could have been
because they felt like it might not have been as self-explanatory.
Maybe.
Because when they're animating in Japanese and all this stuff, they might be like, oh, maybe they won't pick up on this, so we'll add.
Yeah, and I think, too, they were thinking about having this go to a very, very young audience, like a really young audience that wouldn't pick up on clues like, hey, there must be a secret in here.
Yeah.
So they keep saying it. They keep saying, hey, let's find out. I wonder what the secret is. Let's see if we can find out the secret. It's like, okay, is this Blue's Clues or what? What are we doing? So, yeah.
So let's get into the episode.
Okay,
This is the Mammoth Car Part 1 and 2.
Yes.
It's a 2-part series, but altogether is 45 minutes maybe?
Yeah, it's 46 minutes because 23 minutes and 23 minutes, the two episodes, because they do have commercials on them. You can actually see where they fade to black for the commercials.
So basically, it's they're in a race.
I'm just thinking of the Mammoth Car in a race with this giant car. Go ahead.
So they enter a race and this car shows up. They call it the Mammoth Car.
Right.
So let's get some stats here on the Mammoth Car. Let me scroll down to it.
So up front, what do we got? What do we got up front?
200 yards long.
Yes, 200 yards,
which is 600 feet.
2 football fields.
A 600-foot long car, which it's basically a train off rails.
Right.
They said it has 30,000 horsepower with 7,500 up front and 1,500 horsepower per wheel.
Right.
Which got me thinking, again, this is an anime, so you can't think analytically.
Right.
But
that's true.
If it's 1,500 per wheel, assuming that there's an engine per wheel.
Right.
What's the 7,500 horsepower engine up front doing? If every wheel has their own engine, is that just for the accessories? There's just a giant alternator and water pump and
7,500 horsepower is just for accessories.
Just for the accessories.
Those are some pretty heavy duty accessories. There's like a lot of hair dryers and things.
Yeah, I guess so.
Microwave ovens,
power inverters, and
they're trying to do. So
it can achieve 500 miles an hour, which is just
500 miles an hour.
That's worse than in Herbie, him telling him to keep telling Lindsay Lohan
to below 300.
Yeah, keep it under 300.
If you can.
Yeah.
If you can.
And the last thing it said, which I don't even know how this would work.
Yeah.
Magnetic brakes.
Yes.
I don't know how.
Just one touch of the button. That's what he says. Just one touch of the button, and it instantly stops. Okay, and you see later on that's not the case.
Right.
That's not the.
Right.
They can't just stop this thing.
So the whole. I'm going to spoil the whole episode here.
Good.
The point of the episode is that this Mammoth Car shows up, and then Inspector Detector, right? He goes, "Hey, by the way, there was like millions of dollars worth of gold stolen last night. So just like keep your eyes peeled,
right, for something unusual."
Which then, Intector Despector.
No, now you got me messed up. It's
Inspector Detector.
Inspector Detector. Yeah.
So then Inspector Detector says, "Oh, by the way, you would need a really big car to steal this gold, or you would have to melt the gold down and shape it into a car."
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm gonna go now. Which they race across the country.
Yeah.
A fire ends up erupting at the end of the episode.
Exactly.
And the Mammoth Car melts down because it's made of the stolen gold.
Yeah. Can I say something about the Mammoth Car?
Yeah.
It was, honestly, when I was a kid, it was terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because you had this sound. So you're... That is a terrifying sound.
Yeah.
If you were to actually hear
and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the new soundboard that my dad has been.
We're just breaking in the new soundboard.
Hyped about.
Yep, I've been so excited about this.
You told me you didn't have any sounds loaded up.
No, well, I do now. Okay, I do now. So
well, strap in, boys and girls,
here we go.
We're gonna start using a soundboard.
But that was a terrifying. That was so iconic, though. That sound of the Mammoth Car.
Oh yeah.
Was like you always remembered that.
Yeah.
That was always the big thing. The other thing you always remembered.
That's a good one.
The sound of that's the sound of the jacks.
Yeah,
the jump.
Just
in the car,
that sound alone is so nostalgic.
It is.
Also because we had a PlayStation 1 game. I totally forgot to mention.
Right.
Is PlayStation 1 or early? No, it had to have been PlayStation 1. Where it had like a 32-bit version of the steering wheel, and you can hit the buttons on it and all that stuff.
As I recall, I played that game, and it was like way too easy. There was
Probably.
you had no skill whatsoever. You could easily go as fast as you want.
Yeah.
You could race. You weren't going to fly off the track. It was too easy. It was way. There's no challenge to it.
All I remember is it
fun.
had a yellow case.
Yeah, but
it had a yellow case, and
but you could jump the car. I mean, you could go
hit all the buttons.
You could go. Okay. And then you'd actually jump it.
Yeah.
It was pretty
cool.
But
a lot of this show all was nostalgia for me too. All the sounds, because they weren't, this wasn't a super high production value show.
Right.
So they were reusing sounds in every episode. That
definitely.
sound that you just played.
Yep.
Like every I almost said James Bond. Every single Speed Racer episode had that exact same sound clip. Okay, you can hit it again.
Can I hit it? Okay.
What else do you have loaded up?
Okay,
do you
so
have other sounds?
I do.
Okay.
So
all right.
The other thing is that this was also iconic because actually your brother Nick brought this up because we were talking about Speed Racer.
Yeah.
And he said, "Get ready for this." So that is that. Okay, it's on a loop here, but
is it?
Yeah. So I'm gonna turn that off. But anyway, yeah. So that was the thing. Is like in every Speed Racer episode, you always had that as your continual music as he was racing, and so that was another thing to me. Not even the Speed Racer theme song, but that song. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, it's almost
so
like like a bad guy, not overture.
But like in
theme,
James, in James Bond, they always have the James Bond theme that plays whenever something cool happens. So
Surprised
this
you
was
don't have
kind
that
of
on the sound.
No,
clip.
I don't have that, but I do have this. So that is the actual. Okay, do you know where that sound came from?
No, do you?
No, but
okay, cool. But I was just gonna say,
would like to
the
know
sound of the engines.
Yeah.
Very good for the 60s.
Yes.
I don't
agreed.
know how they were getting these sounds.
I read it somewhere, the sound of it. Like on some chat.
It sounds like a big V8. Like it sounds like a GT40. It sounds like straight out of
could have been an
Ford
actual
versus
race
Ferrari.
Car. Yeah, could have been.
But should we do like a Gary's soundbite segment or something? Like each movie you can give us some sound clips from it?
We could, but I just really want now. I'm excited about this because we talk about certain things in the movies, and now I can actually bring in some audio clips,
Right?
And say, okay, yeah, this is when he talks about this or that, and it just yes, we got a brand new board, so this is the first use of this new Zoom. So
what is it? A Zoom?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, it's a Zoom. PodTrack P4.
PodTrack P4,
which is
Zoom.
Yeah, we're gonna try some different things with it, but that's our gift to ourselves for the new year for this podcast.
Right.
So we're gonna see how this goes.
But yeah, a lot of the sounds, a lot of the just the dialogue.
Yeah.
Which also like the dialogue wasn't super clear, not like super recorded, like crisp.
No,
I feel like at some points.
No, it wasn't. But I don't know if you have this in your trivia. The voice of Trixie, as well as I want to say it might have been Spritle, but the voice of Trixie is also the woman who did the Snuggle Bear.
Oh, really?
There's a fabric softener called Snuggle.
Right. Yeah.
And is it Snuggles or Snuggle? Maybe it's Snuggles. I don't know.
That's a
anyway,
Howie Mandela effect.
That's right. Trademark 2022 so the but the same woman who did the little snuggle bear that's in the teddy bear that's in the commercials actually did Trixie's voice, and I believe it was also Spritle's voice too.
Okay.
So, but anyway, very, very, very iconic.
Yeah. I do have a couple notes.
Okay, good.
The first one was I literally said it would have to be a big car and could be melted down to form the shape of a car. And then like he solved his own case right there.
Exactly.
Like literally minute 2 of the episode.
Oh my gosh, I actually was laughing this time when I watched it because I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so blatantly. That's what I mean. It's like so blatantly obvious what was going on.
Right. And then it's like minute 20 of part 1.
Yeah.
And Speed Racer's like, I got a bad feeling about this Mammoth car. It's like
which, by the way, it ran every other car off the road except for the Mach 5.
Right.
So, that's okay. Just something to say about all of the Speed Racer movies. This was the total child's fantasy of what a race was.
Right.
There was no rules. People would fly off the track. There's no red flags. There's no yellow flags.
There's no homologation of because they're like you can enter anything. That would never really happen because
you could enter. Yeah.
Because the sky's the limit, and you would have guys showing up with 2,000 horsepower Supras, and they would kill themselves because people are dumb. You have to create rules for a race in order to keep people from literally killing themselves.
Well, and then you saw in this race, there was one guy in a locomotive engine.
Yeah.
He's like at a steam-powered car, and he, for no reason, runs right into a guardrail and explodes. Yeah. It's like, and it was like,
well, the intro of the song, there's a car that spins out and crashes. The powerful Mach 5.
Right. And then, too bad we didn't have a soundboard.
Yeah.
But
I'm stuck in my old ways.
No, that's all good. But yeah, I actually did a speech in high school for one of my high school speech classes on Speed Racer, and I talked about the fact that the opening is hilarious because this car goes flying off the track. When it blows up, it's like an oil tanker blowing up. I mean, literally, like, how did you have that much energy inside of that small vehicle to create that much of an explosion? It's just amazing. And no red flag or no yellow flags,
who
no
knows
cautions,
where
nothing.
It's not a track. It's always these cross country.
Well, that's it too.
Cannonball races, like
exactly that.
But they always start in a stadium because there's fans, and then those people just see the start and then go home.
I guess so. It's like this fantasy race every single time.
Speaking
of
which,
race.
I thought of this today.
Yeah.
We should do Death Race 2000 at some point.
Definitely.
That would be one to do.
Yes. Absolutely,
yeah. Literally because because I was down in Pontiac, Illinois, that terrible town.
Really?
It's a dump.
Well,
and I mentioned it in the review
Shout
I
out
filmed
to
today.
Pontiac.
Yeah, it's just but
everyone, we love you in Pontiac.
I saw a guy on the side of the road in a wheelchair, and I thought of that scene in Death Race 2000 where they wheel all the old people out into the street.
Yeah, that could happen, I guess, yeah.
But yeah, anyway, other notes.
Mm-hmm.
The name of the lake that they drive into.
Lake Icy Chill?
Lake Icy Chill.
Yeah.
How lazy of a name.
All of them. Cruncher Block. What kind of a
Yeah.
name is for the bad guy? Cruncher Block.
Snake Oiler.
Snake Oiler. That's
Yeah.
another one.
Snake Oil, which is like, the famously fake
Right.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, all of the bad guys have really terribly bad names, and they're also very scary looking anime characters. They really are like, and they're the one guy, the one that annoys me the most in this entire cartoon is the guy with the giant lips. He has insanely unrealistic, weird lips, and he always bothered me as a kid. I wanted to punch him so bad as a kid.
It's very weird drawing. I don't know. All right, so ladies and gents, everything comes at a price. We are trying new equipment, and it seems to have just shut off mid-podcast.
Yeah.
So sorry for that tone. But yeah, that was very strange.
Sorry about that. I have to literally change batteries. So
your precious soundboard has cost us.
Well, yeah.
It's okay.
Like I say, it's worth it though. It's worth it.
Is it?
Is it?
I forget where we even left off. What we were talking about. But
well, no, we're what were we talking about?
I don't know, but I do have one more note.
Okay,
which
go ahead.
is when Speed Racer says, when Speed Racer says, "Oh, something reminds me of my brother Rex," when he's talking about Racer X.
Right.
Which is like so clearly obvious that it's his brother, Racer X, Rex.
Right, exactly.
He's like, this guy reminds me of my brother, but it can't be because he's wearing a mask.
But
it makes me wonder if Speed Racer might have developmental issues or something.
He might not be all there.
Because literally, Inspector Detector Erector was like... He was like, hey, the car's going to be big and might be shaped differently. And Speed Racer, for 45 minutes, races against a giant car, and he doesn't once think, maybe this is the gold.
Yeah.
I don't know. Speed Racer just doesn't seem like a bright guy when you kind of zone out.
No, I think you're right. I think okay, Inspector Detector's not much better.
That's true.
But
I did see a YouTube video. If you're on YouTube, type it in after this one. It's called Proof That Speed Racer's a Sociopath.
Really?
And he kills a guy in a helicopter. He makes a helicopter crash in one of the episodes.
It's true.
And is completely unfazed by it.
Well, and speaking of helicopters, I just want to say that actually, if you think about this, the character Trixie is actually a pretty strong female character.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't take any guff from any guy, and yet she's this probably really the only female character except for Mrs. Speed Racer. Speed's mom. But she not only that, she flies a helicopter, she flies an airplane like a Cessna. So she can pilot just about anything.
Yeah.
And she's a very strong character. Now she's very jealous, and I always
Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say it was always weird though what the connection was. Were they dating? What was going on? But they were. But then she would get immediately jealous about any girl that came up. So that would.
I was gonna say I find it interesting now that you mentioned it that Speed Racer has a normal family.
He does.
He does. I feel like it's rare in cartoons, at least nowadays.
Yeah.
Where the character has both parents.
Yep. Exactly.
And siblings and is a more nuclear family.
Yeah.
I guess that was more the case with '60s cartoons. Thinking about the Flintstones and the Jetsons, which. By the way, I think I've mentioned this before. None of my friends know what the Jetsons is.
What?
None of my friends know what the Jetsons is.
Rosie and the Jetsons? Oh, my gosh.
Because I drove... Oh, what did I drive?
Rosie the robot.
It was some electric car. It was the...
That's kind
it was
of
the
sound
Kia Niro EV. It's Kia's first technical mass-produced electric vehicle, whatever.
All right.
And at slow speeds, it has this humming noise.
Okay.
And it always reminds me of the Jetsons because it makes no other noise, but electric cars have to produce an artificial noise because their engines don't make any noise. So for blind people, it's important because they can't hear a car coming.
Right.
And so a lot of EV manufacturers have to give this sort of fake produced sound. And I always say, oh, it's like the Jetsons. And I've said to a couple of my friends, and they're like, what's the Jetsons? And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah. Which is really funny because around the same time, I think it was Hanna-Barbera that did those. They had the Flintstones, which was the modern Stone Age family.
Right.
Then you had the Jetsons,
right,
who are on the opposite spectrum. They're in the future,
which,
as opposed to the
this year, August of 2022.
Yeah.
George Jetson is going to be born.
What?
Yeah, someone looked it up, and like in one of the episodes, he was born in 2022.
Was he
George
really?
Jetson, yeah.
Wow.
Because it takes place in like 2080 something.
Wow. And he's part of the Matrix because that's coming back.
Oh, jeez, yeah. He's also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But yeah, I just thought that was so funny
Spacely Sprockets.
with Speed Racer does not put two and two together that Racer X is his brother. Like I'm starting to think he might be developmentally challenged.
He might have some difficulties. He might have some challenges.
Speed Racer, he's a guy that you root for, but like now that I think about it, like I'm not really sure why. Like he doesn't have any like edge to him. He's just like Speed Racer. But like you love him because he's Speed Racer.
Well, you do, and because I think he is kind of the every person, so you can everyone, especially every kid wants to be a race car driver and drive fast and have all these wonderful adventures. And what's funny too, actually, there are several there's several episodes, and actually the toys that we got came with like a machine gun. Remember there was like the Speed Racer machine gun. And it was like,
does he ever use one in the cartoons?
Oh yeah. He like shoots machine guns and stuff like that. But he never kills anyone with a machine gun. I mean, he scares people away, and it's not like just gratuitous, But lots of believe it or not, in these episodes, lots of people die. You don't necessarily see people die, but like cars go over cliffs.
Toll of the Speed Racer death toll.
Bing, bing, bing. I mean, you'd be like ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Ding. I mean, all of the different. Yeah, that's actually probably a good thing to do for an episode.
Man, I wish. There's a YouTube channel called Corridor Digital. We talk about them a fair amount.
Right. Yes.
And they've been doing a series recently where they'll make PG movies rated R.
Oh, right.
And so they recently did Spider-Man.
Oh,
like
really?
there's a scene where actually we were a part of filming.
We were kind of, yes.
The subway scene.
Well, we were. They did film us. That's true. They did
the subway scene for Spider-Man, I believe 2.
Yes.
Which was filmed in Chicago, by the way, which doesn't have above ground trains.
Yes. Right.
So that doesn't make sense in that movie. But we were there that filming day, whatever. He stops the train with his webs.
Right.
And so they made it so he's stopping the train, his arms just rip off, because that's obviously what would happen.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know.
So Corridor Digital, if you're listening, which we know you are, you should make a rated R version of Speed Racer.
Oh, yeah.
Where there's just limbs.
Could totally do it. I mean, even in this movie, they strap him to a mine car at one point, and they put him down into a mine, and Racer X saves them. Spoiler alert, saves them. By letting them go to a different track, and he goes, well, the dynamite, 3 tons of dynamite that they're strapped to, literally 3 tons is what they say, that won't hurt you anymore. And then the other car that was about to collide with them, that was going to set off the explosive, that one blows up in the mine. Yeah. So it's like, and it blows up not just a small amount, like all you see in the frame is just explosions. It's like this huge giant explosion, like a nuclear bomb, and they don't get hurt at all.
Also,
they come out all charred. You remember that?
Actually,
they come out all like.
But also, for a race, there's a lot of hanging out.
Oh yeah,
and,
there's definitely
walking around, and I remember Racer X was like,
"Hey, Cannonball
don't ever
Run,
leave your car," and it's like
Cannonball Run.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure Cannonball Run pulled from Speed Racer.
I probably
at some point.
Yeah, because and again, this is the fantasy version of what a race is.
Right. I think that was an interesting point you touched on that I didn't really think of, is that like if this were geared towards a younger audience, that's what everyone thinks that a race would be.
Exactly.
Like.
Yeah, that it would be cross country. Yeah. It would be on open roads. It would be like anywhere they wanted it to be. There's no rules. There's no officials. I mean, they go to a checkpoint, and then they even like push the official out of the Mammoth car. Okay, how dumb are all these people? Like, who didn't figure out that the Mammoth car was made of gold? And by the way, that was the plot for Goldfinger. That Goldfinger was transporting gold by having his car made out of gold and then melting it down.
Right. Which I don't think could really work.
Well, probably if you mixed gold with other metals. You could make it strong enough, and then you melt it down, I guess, and somehow separate it.
Which is
I don't know how that works. I'm not a metallurgist or anything like that. Whatever.
Because I watched this. I watched this show.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
And then I went on my TikTok for a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a phenomenon on TikTok where people just post movie clips.
Yeah.
like from other movies, like completely just ripping the movie and just putting it up on TikTok, like in a 1 second clip or whatever. And it was the movie Tower Heist. Do you remember that movie?
Oh yeah, I remember
where it's a Ferrari that's up in a penthouse that they steal, and the Ferrari's made of gold.
Yes.
And so it was the clip where Ben Stiller is peeling the paint back on the Ferrari, and it's gold underneath.
Realizing that's where the fortune is. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So spoiler alert on that one.
Yeah, it was funny. We should do that one at some point.
And that would be fun. That would be
a Ferrari in it. And it's a star-studded cast, if I remember correctly.
And Alan Alda being a bad guy.
Oh, is Alan Alda in it?
Alan Alda is the main bad guy, and normally for all the years that MASH was on TV, you always thought, Alan Alda is this great, lovable character.
I can only think of Bill Hader when I think of Alan Alda because he does a great Alan Alda impression.
True. That is so true.
And,
he does the best. Shout out to Bill Hader. And shout out to Paul Shin.
And shout out to Craig Lieberman.
We almost
shout out to Brent Nagy. I was at a party last night.
Oh, okay.
And he listens to a lot of the episodes. We were talking about some of the movies that we did. He said
Brett Nagy, right?
Brent Nagy. It's Alex's older brother.
Oh, gotcha.
Nagy.
So shout out to you, Brent.
Shout out to Brent. And Brent's also expecting, very excited.
Oh,
him and
great.
his wife. Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations.
He said that he's going to name the child Crayon after your joke from the very first episode. So the baby's going to be named Crayon.
Spelled X, though. It has to be spelled X. So that people.
He also said that you never take notes, and I'm like, you are a true listener.
It is true.
Yeah, he was like, your dad never takes notes. And I'm like, you're right. You actually listen.
Exactly.
Totally forgot about why I brought that up. But shout out to Brent.
Don't. Tower
Heist. Oh, Alan Alda, and things like that.
Back to that. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Bill Hader does a fantastic Alan Alda impression and all that stuff. So
yeah. No, it's all good.
But Tower Heist. Oh yeah. So gold in the car.
Gold in the car, yes.
Yeah, so let's get to the trivia because my trivia kind of ties into that.
Yeah,
which
good.
also, by the way, we're at 51. I don't know with the break.
I don't know.
How specific
We're just
that time's going to be.
This is going to be a shorter one, I think.
But
by the way, do you have the next movie?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
This podcast is already longer than both Mammoth Car episodes put together.
Wow, we could have talked through the whole thing.
Yeah, we could. We could. I mean, it's on YouTube. We could have done a commentary track.
That's true.
This is pulled from, but in no way sponsored by IMDb.
Yep.
Speed Racer's car, the Mach 5, was primarily based on 3 automobiles. The race car's Ferrari 250 Testarossa.
Okay.
The Ford GT40 from.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
And 007's weapon-equipped Aston Martin.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
like you said earlier.
Which, it's funny because I'm a big James Bond fan, I'm a big Speed Racer fan, and never really made the connection. So,
yeah.
very, how dumb am I? I am in the
You
universe
are Speed
of,
Racer,
I
fully.
am Speed
You look
Racer.
like him as a kid, and the
I have
pieces
his
are put out in
intelligence.
front of you, and it takes you 42 minutes to figure it out.
Not 42 minutes, 50 years probably.
Yeah.
It took 50 years for me to figure this out. So yeah.
This next one's interesting because you kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
That should be a soundboard. We should just keep that for every
Right,
episode.
Yeah.
In the manga, Trixie's father owns Shimura Aviation.
What?
This is the reason she can afford both a Mercedes-Benz convertible and her own pink helicopter.
Which is cool because she does show up. I believe it is in this episode where she shows up in a Mercedes.
Right.
Which I was wondering, where did she? Yeah, that's crazy.
Which I find is also interesting because if you remember Initial D, which we haven't done the anime Initial D, we only did the movie.
We did the movie.
But in the anime, it's a very big point where Takumi's girlfriend is basically, for lack of better words, getting paid off by a man in the Mercedes. But do you remember? It's a Mercedes.
I do, and it is a Mercedes.
And so it's very interesting. I feel
cringy.
It's totally cringy.
Yeah.
It's terrible, the subplot. But the fact, I guess I never realized how much Mercedes weight influence in Japanese culture.
I guess
because
so,
all these high, the highfalutin thing. Oh, you drive a Mercedes.
Yeah,
I feel like here
that's
would
weird.
be like a Bentley or Rolls Royce or
It's
I guess Mercedes is sort of like a working man's luxury car. I feel like where like it's like someone who's really high up would have that, but like a billionaire would drive something that's like the Rolls Royce with the suicide doors, and red velour seats.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it was just kind of interesting that the two animes we've talked about have both had Mercedes.
Never knew that background on Trixie. I think that's really cool. Actually, that is actually a very cool thing. I wish they would have done that they would have put that in the animation.
Yeah, it makes me want to try to source the manga.
Right.
Especially,
yes, exactly,
now that's 50 years old. I'm sure it's hard to find unless they did reprints. But
it could have. I mean, it's a very, very popular show.
Yeah, but even Initial D manga is like impossible to find.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's too bad, yeah.
The show's creator, Tatsuo Yoshida, cited Viva Las Vegas, 1964, and Goldfinger, 1964, two extremely popular films in Japan in the 1960s as the main influences on the show. And he used Elvis Presley's race car driver image, complete with neckerchief and black pompadour hairstyle, and a gadget-filled car.
Wow, yeah, that's right, because it was he was very Elvis, like a young Elvis.
Which is interesting, again, like for a Japanese writer wanting to write something American.
Right.
Besides coming to America, the only instance you get of America is through our pop culture, through our music, through our movies.
That is true, yeah.
And American cars never really caught on in Japan. There's some people that like import Camaros, but like those are like, it's not a common thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So like it's very interesting seeing that like, oh, if I want to write American,
Elvis
this Elvis Presley
Bond.
guy is like Mr. America.
Yeah,
which
he's
is just
like
interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
The M on Speed Racer's car and helmet, which in America stands for Mach 5, is because in Japan it stands for Mifune. Mifune, which is Speed Racer's original family name.
Oh.
And in Latin America stands for Meteoro, literally meaning meteor, which moves swiftly and fast.
Okay.
So I guess their last name in the Japanese cartoons is Mifune.
Okay, but they are but I thought were this racer film, Speed Racer, right?
That's what I thought too. I don't know.
And isn't it Team Go? Because they mentioned in Mammoth Car it's Team Go.
Like I said, this is IMDb. I'm just reading what it's.
All right. Well, if it's on IMDb, it's got to be true. It's,
true.
It's nothing ever.
In the Wildstorm comics, the Mach 4 is shown and driven by Racer X.
Oh, is that
driven by Rex Racer.
Rex.
So
Racer.
his brother drove the Mach 4 before mysteriously.
How do they not get it?
I don't know.
That's the brother.
His family's real thick in the head. They can't put two and two together. In the Now comics, which is a different comic.
Yeah. By the way, that'd make a good SNL skit.
Yes.
Rex Racer would come back and be like, "I'm Rex, your brother." Wait,
I
what?
Don't know.
I don't
got
understand.
a feeling, Inspector Detector.
I don't understand. Go ahead.
In the Now comics, the Mach 5 engine is shown in the rear of the car.
Okay.
In the television show, it is very clearly shown to be in the front.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So in the
front,
comics, it's a rear-engined Mach 5.
That's funny.
As opposed to. Yeah.
So where would Spritle and Chim Chim be if they couldn't?
They would be disintegrated, is what they would be. Get in.
They always got into the back end of the trunk,
Right.
And it was like, don't you know by now that when you go on some adventure or race, you need to check the trunk for a monkey and a small child.
And a child, yeah. Which also, this is before you were legally required to have a handle on the inside of your trunk.
Oh, right.
For release. That was like, I believe, mid-90s?
But they could open it from the inside.
Somehow. I don't know how.
They did. Somehow they did, because Spritle was always opening up the back.
But now legally you have to have a little glow-in-the-dark, specifically
really?
pull tag.
Glow-in-the-dark? Wow.
Okay. Our CX-5 doesn't have one because it's not a concealed trunk. You can get from the back to the front.
Right, exactly.
Which, now that I realize it, we don't have any sedans in the family anymore.
We don't. You're right.
The
we don't have
Pacifica's
any.
a hatchback. My Mazda 3 is a hatchback, so it doesn't have one. But the G6 had a glow-in-the-dark pull tag.
It's funny that I never... sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
I never think that your 3 is a hatchback for some reason.
Yeah, I always forget about it, too.
Really?
And we have...
right.
We have every combination of... We have a total offshoot.
Okay.
But at our house...
We never do that.
At our house right now,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nick has an all-wheel drive V8.
Yes.
I have an all-wheel drive inline-4.
Yeah.
You have an
all-wheel drive?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I bought it.
All right.
Your CX-5 is an all-wheel drive inline-4. We have a front-wheel drive V6.
Yes, Pacifica, yeah.
And we have a rear-wheel drive rotary.
Yes.
So we have like every combination
and
of...
we have a rear-wheel drive inline 4, which is the Model A.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a rear-wheel...
So we have 2 rear-wheel drive cars.
Yep.
3 all-wheel drive cars.
That's crazy.
And a front-wheel drive car.
Bring on the winner.
Yeah.
All right.
And then we have...
Shout out to winner.
We have inline 4s, V6s, V8s, and rotaries.
Yeah, we have a lot of cars.
Stick shift. We have 2 stick shift and a bunch of automatics.
It's so funny because someone, not a long time ago, but someone was bringing a pizza in or something, or somebody was delivering a pizza, and they go, "Hey, it looks like you're having a party," and it's like, no, that's exactly what our driveway looks every single day. We have like 50,000 cars parked in our driveway. That's a slight exaggeration, but not much.
Which, by the way, we talked earlier about selling the Pacifica for a Volkswagen Bug.
Yes.
You're looking at about $12,000
for a Bug.
Yeah.
$12,000.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For like a decent one, you can find them for like $5,000, but they're like not running.
Well, we could have a project car.
We'll see, but I did.
Aren't there a lot of parts for VW Bugs?
Yeah, they made over 15 million of them.
Okay, so there's got to be parts. We could.
Honestly, a very common swap is people put Subaru engines into them.
Oh, really?
Because they're flat 4s.
Are they air cooled?
No.
Oh.
So you have to run a radiator up front.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
other than that.
All right.
So getting back to the trivia.
So what? Huh? What are we talking about? Yeah.
A smaller copy of the Formula One open-wheeled version of the Mach 5 was built for Prince Jam, and driven by Spritel. It was painted red and given the number 1. So in one of the episodes, I thought that was funny. They did like a open-wheeled version of the Mach 5.
That's interesting. Yeah.
In the end credits, the first steam car is driven by Pops Racer, is a 1769 steam car built by Nicholas Joseph Cugnot. The second steam car, driven by Trixie, is an 1803 London steam carriage built by Richard Trevthick.
Yeah.
I always thought that was interesting. The ending
is,
credits, they're driving like
100-year-old
cars.
They go through the history. They're going through the history of automobiles, and at the very end, there's flying cars.
Oh, I never noticed that.
At the very end, there's almost. It looks like a George Jetson mobile, and it's a flying car at the very end, which is really funny because they go through that whole thing, that whole. And if you think about it, it's actually a very fascinating thing. Is the whole. I can't believe it. What was it? 17? What was the first one?
The 17? First one was 1769.
1769. That's pretty flippin' amazing.
Well, what's interesting is that from 1769 basically to let's just say 1880. Okay. So 120 years.
Yeah.
Technology in cars, motorized carriages did not progress at all.
Yeah.
And then from, let's just say 1900 to now, which is the same amount of time.
Yeah.
We've gone from single cylinder Model Ts that didn't even have brakes at all 4 wheels.
Yeah.
To now we have like Hellcat Demons that are, SRT Demons that have 1,000 horsepower. We have cars that drive themselves.
Yes.
We have technology is just so much crazier. We have airbags, we have seatbelts, we have traction control, ABS, we have, I just drove a Jeep the other day that drives itself. It was very weird.
Really?
Yeah, the Jeep,
it's
a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
Get ready for this one.
Okay.
2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L Summit Reserve.
Yeah.
That's the whole name of it. Had night vision and self-driving.
Does it do this? Or does it?
It does that.
It does that.
Actually,
okay, cool.
You know what? It has hydraulic suspension.
Oh, it does.
Well, it has
right,
airbags.
So we're close. Okay.
So and it has 11 inches of travel.
Yeah.
So when you put it up in high mode,
that's almost a foot. That's pretty darn big. Yeah.
Which is cool if you're in off-road mode and you switch it to park. Yeah. It like lowers all the way down, so it's easier to get out. It's really cool.
Okay.
Really cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
One more here. In both the anime and manga comics, Speed discovers Racer X is indeed his brother Rex Racer, but both have very different endings.
Oh.
In the manga version, Rex reveals himself to Speed, and the two reunite. While in the anime version, the TV show version that we're talking about, Speed confronts Racer X and gets knocked out, Racer X deciding to go back into full-time espionage and leaving racing and Speed Racer behind.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
So in the show, he finds out.
Yeah.
And then he gets knocked out, which I remember that because I thought it was like.
I do remember that actually. Yeah.
Racer X a bad guy? Like what's going on?
Which was really weird, but then also. You think about it too. How many times in this series has Spritle Chim Chim, I don't know about Chim Chim, but Speed Racer been knocked out?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about serious.
You know what?
Maybe that.
I
is
was
the
just about to say. I think maybe that's like,
that's the reason why he's having difficulties figuring out the mysteries.
Yeah.
But Trixie, what's going on with Trixie? Because she doesn't get it either.
Well, here's a fan
Maybe she's being
theory.
nice to him.
What if Speed Racer's maybe like in a coma? And
Could
he's just
be.
like, from all this
From
knocking
all the
out.
being knocked
Or
out all the time.
It's like
yeah.
one of those scenarios where like everyone's like, oh yeah, you're normal. You're normal. Your life is normal. But everyone knows like Trixie's really just like she's a nurse. She's an in-home nurse.
And she
like,
has
oh
to
yeah, Speed, you solved the mystery.
She has to stay with him because it's like legally, it's
he's just sitting in a cardboard box and going
state mandated.
She's like, oh yeah, the Mach 5. Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
He's making that sound.
Yeah.
With his
It's just all mouth sounds. Yeah.
There we go.
Imagination. Maybe this just took a dark turn. Maybe Speed
did.
Racer is like a mental
Wow.
patient.
Ooh,
With all the
yikes.
knockouts. And,
Well, that could be that thing that Corridor does. They make it like this weird.
Yeah.
They could make it a weird version.
put like some violin music over it
Yeah,
and
that
stuff.
would be
So
very odd. But yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff as a kid that I loved and would overlook, and just there's so many pieces of this thing. I was always like, why didn't you check the trunk for Spritle and Chim Chim? Why is
which also I remember the toy.
Yeah.
Spritle and Chim Chim fit in the trunk of
yes,
the toy.
they do. They
which
do.
was great. I
Which is
loved
awesome,
stuffing them in there.
Yes, and actually, he does come with a trophy.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, and it's just, I mean, it's again though, there's so many things in it. Now that you talk about anime, now it makes a lot of sense because
Right.
a lot of the visuals that they created as animators, much more match the anime type than do.
If you think of, you have to think really of anime as literally comics that came to life.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it that way, of they were taking this comic book material and sort of ushering it into video,
right,
for lack of better terms.
Yes.
It starts to make more sense why there's like such big reactions, why there's like, because that would have been, have been a speech bubble that took up a fourth of the square or whatever. That was like, and you would have to draw in the blushing cheeks and.
Well, yeah, it's definitely over exaggerated. So much, but also because the English language and the Japanese is very different.
Right.
They sometimes had to fill in things where they would end a sentence with that. It would be like, "Well, I have to go to the store, huh?"
Yeah.
It would be like, well, that didn't really fit there. But also, one thing that just popped into my head, I don't know why. At the beginning of this, if you watch Race Against the Mammoth Car, the first episode. The first guy who comes out, like the official, has a Hitler mustache. Did you notice that?
No.
If you go back and look at it, he actually has the little the little Hitler mustache.
You know,
So
I was
kinda,
actually thinking about that mustache yesterday because
What?
because I have the opposite issue. I can't
Okay.
really grow facial hair. I can't grow directly under my nose.
Oh,
it
really?
won't grow there. I have a reverse Hitler
so,
mustache.
So you should have that become a fad.
Well, do you know why that was a fad?
Why?
The Hitler mustache? I actually learned this. I had a class all about Hitler.
Okay.
In college.
Yeah.
It was because of gas masks from the First World War that it became in fashion to have your mustache cut short.
Oh.
So then when you had a gas mask because of the First
Right.
World War, it would properly seal.
Okay.
Instead of if you had the full mustache, it wouldn't seal properly around your mouth and nose.
Like a very ornate mustache.
Yeah, so that
would not work.
the Hitler mustache was
Wow.
actually birthed out of the First World War and having to wear gas masks.
Laurel and Hardy had that. They had the guy, one of them, I can't remember which one. Of course, everyone's going to be yelling at the screen. at the time.
Yeah.
But one of them had a Hitler mustache. And
Yeah.
it was not considered.
Charlie Chaplin.
Well, Charlie Chaplin did. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It was a very in-fashion thing.
Yeah.
And from what I was told from my English professor
Yeah.
in the Hitler class, which we had a 700-page book about Hitler we had to read.
Really?
Wow.
Wow.
I didn't read it, though. I owned it.
I
but-
just hope it wasn't a how-to.
No, God, no. It was something called My Struggle. It was really weird.
My God.
But no. It was a whole historical book that we were supposed to read, and I didn't end up reading it. And then I think he canceled the final. He was like one of those professors that like half of the time he would just talk about how he was excited to go home and drink gin. He was from the UK. He actually used to teach at Cambridge, and I'm like, why'd you come to this like step up from community college or whatever?
That's interesting. Okay,
but yeah, that was the one thing he said. The mustache came from gas masks.
I guess I
but
guess
also
it
this
makes
was
sense,
1967. This was
that's
almost,
right. This is after.
This was over 20 years after the end of the Second World War.
Why was that? Yeah, why was that okay? And this was a Japanese cartoon. By the way. So
that's
interesting
true.
That was that way. But so often, I mean, if you watch the whole series, and we have the DVD that has a ton of different episodes on it. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
And the famous ones.
Yeah.
If you go through and watch those, it's really interesting as you piece them together, because it becomes like so painfully obvious that Racer X is his brother. I mean, it's so obvious.
Besides the fact that the announcer tells it every
single
Racer
time.
X is on screen.
Every time he's on screen. Racer X, who happens to be, Racer, has to be Speed Racer's, long lost brother.
Yeah.
And it's, again, how many times that people have been knocked out anyway?
Which I do want to say, one thing I forgot to write down, but I wanted to say, was the announcer kind of has a little bit of a mid-Atlantic accent.
Yeah.
Which I miss.
Yeah.
It has that very much announcer accent.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar, the mid-Atlantic accent was basically, it only lasted from like the 1920s till like late 1950s, maybe. It was an actual accent. Do you know about this?
Not really. No,
so
I mean,
it was like, like Dateline, Mount Fuji, like old timey speak that we never hear anymore.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, it was literally an accent that people just adopted or adapted.
Yeah.
Because the microphones of the time weren't good at recording a wide range of highs and lows and ups and downs. Yeah. So it was like this sort of almost monotone but still excited accent that people picked up.
Gotcha.
Today you're joining us, but that. It was like this weird. It's called the Mid-Atlantic accent if you want to look it up. And so I missed that because it's like it's very cool. Dated. Like you think of like the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, like fireside chats.
Yeah. Well, if you watch the newsreels are very famous for those. And look at these beauties coming down the line. Oh, right. And they're gonna say goodbye to hello and blah 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 blah.
But I bet you. If we were to look at your recorded lines that you just said, there's probably not a whole lot of valleys. There's a couple of peaks in there, but there's not a whole lot of lows.
Right,
like you couldn't talk like this because they would have just been lost in the static.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I get that, but definitely a lot of movies in the especially 40s and early 50s, I would say, but 40s. 30s, 40s,
and if you think about it, in foreign countries back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, not every country was making movies like they are now. Pretty much every country is producing some type of movie right now.
Right, exactly.
Back in the day, Hollywood was literally the entertainment capital of the world.
It was.
And so if they were putting out this fake accent so the microphones could pick it up, and people in other countries thought, oh, that's just how Americans talk.
Right.
Like, that's an American accent, but it really wasn't. It was a for the camera accent, and then you go home, smoke a cigarette, and hit your wife. Like that was that's what you did in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I thought.
Well, and it's funny too because in this episode they're smoking cigarettes. The cartoon characters are smoking cigarettes. Which is pretty hilarious because you never ever have that today.
Well, Bugs Bunny used to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, that's true, and so did Fred Flintstone. Fred Flintstone actually used to do cigarette commercials.
There's really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Winston commercials.
Oh wow.
And there's if you look online,
God bless.
Well, if he says he goes, Winston's taste good like a cigarette should. I mean, he does the whole thing. You can look it up online. You can see that.
Well, there's Tom and Jerry was what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Because who's the mouse?
Oh, that is
that Jerry?
Yeah.
So
Tom Cat and Jerry Mouse.
Yeah. Tom rolls his own cigarette and then uses Jerry to lick it.
Yes.
And then rolls it up, shoots it with a gun. Alec Baldwin style, shoots it with a gun to light it, smokes the whole thing down,
right,
and then pops his hat at like this like girl cat.
Right.
And I was
Yes.
like, man, you couldn't do any of that anymore. Or
Yeah.
sticking the finger in the barrel of the shotgun.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah. Oh,
it
that's right, exactly.
Bananas out or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, nowadays it would be a spliff. That
Yeah,
would, just
yeah,
be
yeah.
like a flat out,
Yeah.
I'm
But
I'm just making
that's so
a
funny.
reference there.
Yeah.
No,
All-
it would be like, which is kind of weird if you think about it, because
Yeah.
that's actually becoming more in vogue now. So it's kind of like, in some things, there's so many things you could not do now that you could get away with back in, remember
Late
the
60s.
movies I did when I was in high school. You could not
it's
do the
true.
movies the movies I made in high school. You could not do now. You just simply couldn't.
What's also so interesting to me, and I've been hearing a lot about this more and more, is that when you were in school back in like the 1860s or whatever.
Wow.
And you're
All right,
writing
you,
on
you
slate.
suck. Okay.
No.
Yep.
You were in elementary school in what, the 70s, 80s?
I was in elementary school. I was in the 70s. Yeah.
You never did an active shooter drill, did you?
Oh, no. No, but we got the crap scared out of us for the tornado drills. Tornado drills
Oh,
were,
we had that
in
too.
the Midwest, tornado drills were like scary as
Which
anything.
they just told us to go out in the hallways and like roll our head
Right.
up against the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was thinking about it. I was like, oh yeah.
Did you guys do active shooter when you were in
Yes.
school? Okay, that's
all the time we did
I think
active
that
shooter
is
drills.
way more traumatic.
Oh,
way
yeah.
more
Like
traumatic.
now being removed from school. I've been out of school for 2 years, almost 2 years now, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
We had every college class. We were like, okay, like it was like to the point where it's like, okay, if the shooter comes
Right,
in, we have to do
right,
this,
right,
this,
right,
and
right,
this, and
yeah.
like we had the whole pamphlets about it. We also in college we
Yeah.
had a mandatory sexual assault seminar we had to go to. That was 2 hours.
and I hope that
to
was
not-
not a how-to.
It was not a how to. It was a how to. It was
That's
a
terrible.
literally how not to sexual assault.
Really?
And my friends and I were sitting there and we're like, it's sad that we need to go through this training.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, oh man, I
well,
guess I never
harassment
realized
though, harassment or assault? Because
it was both. It was both. So it was
Okay.
like
Jeez.
it was like, hey, don't ever, it
yeah.
was like, don't say this to that, don't say
Right.
that, and it's also like, don't take advantage of people if they can't physically speak, they can't give consent.
Oh, right,
which
right,
is all
right,
like should be common sense.
Right. Well, that's that. See, that right there though is the whole crux of what you just said. Is that should be common sense.
Right.
Those things should be common
But
sense.
sadly, history has shown that it's not.
Evidently, that's
But
crazy.
it's just,
but,
I was thinking about that the other day, and it's like, oh yeah, that's something my parents never had to deal with. Also,
no, we
you
didn't.
guys never had social media either.
No, we
you
didn't.
never
No.
like when you went home, you didn't interact with the people in your school.
No,
You'd hang out with your friend or whatever.
Well, that
but,
was
like,
it. Yeah, we'd hang out, or we'd call each other on one phone that we had that everyone in the house
Right.
shared. So it literally, people would wait to get on the phone.
Yeah.
Because if one person's on the phone, nobody else could call you. So you didn't have like 5 people texting each other inside the
Right.
same house.
Yeah.
Where that is very common nowadays. Yeah, there was nothing like
Yeah.
that. So that communication, it was basically, seriously, you'd ride your bike to a friend's house and maybe you'd all meet up at the pharmacy or the not pharmacy, the Oswald's or something like that. Shout out to Oswald's. But yeah, I mean, you'd meet out at the corner or whatever. But that's it. That's all you had.
Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and they were talking about, being a social media or content creator and like the struggles of it, which like, I'm not saying at all what I do is a struggle. My job is not a struggle. I'm very thankful for the job that I have.
Okay,
and
Jerry Seinfeld.
I've driven. Yeah, I know. But the other thing that they were saying is that like the human body isn't designed to have 10,000 people's thoughts sent
Correct.
directly to you.
Yes.
Like even having like 8 people text you at the same time is a very inhumane thing.
Yeah.
Because
it's a little crazy.
like if 8 people were talking to you at the same time vocally, like in the same room, you'd lose your mind.
Yeah. You know who didn't have that issue?
Who?
Speed Racer.
Speed Racer.
So I'm kind of bringing it back to that, but you're absolutely right though.
Yeah.
I don't want to lessen that, but yeah, absolutely. And so the generations have gone through very different
Right.
things. Socially, very, very different. Again, things that you could get away with in the 60s, obviously you can't get now,
I guess
now.
my ending point would be when you went to elementary school, if you wanted to dress up for Speed Racer as Halloween and brought an Uzi or machine gun, you wouldn't have been an issue.
It wouldn't have been an issue at all.
But
not at all.
now we would have got thrown into codes.
Oh,
we
yeah.
would have
Yeah, there
locked
would have been,
down.
yeah.
Did you have lockdown Like
No, not really. We didn't. No, we didn't have lockdowns. No, we just
since kindergarten we had lockdown
Wow.
drills where it was like there was
That's
2 different
terrifying.
lockdowns. There was lockdown seek shelter,
Yeah.
which literally we would like hide in the cupboards and cupboards
or suburbs
or
whatever.
suburbs,
Yeah.
Or
But,
there was
yeah.
like lockdown continue instruction where we would just not let anyone leave and close the door. Which
Okay.
we actually went into a couple of those. Like a couple kids had to be carried out in like stretchers from like
What?
like a kid would like fall in a class or pass out.
Okay.
So they
all right,
didn't
yeah,
want
yeah.
us out in the hallway seeing a
Gotcha.
kid leaving on a stretcher
Gotcha,
and
yeah.
be traumatized.
Yeah,
But
that
we
would
always
be
had lockdown
traumatizing.
drills and stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, Speed Racer was people died all the time, smoking
Oh,
cigarettes, car
yeah,
chases.
It wasn't, and that
giant
was
saw blades coming out of the front of a car.
Yeah. And that was okay. That is one thing I did want to mention. Talk about deforestation.
Oh yeah,
Speed Racer knocks down about 40,000 trees,
doing
and then,
250 miles an hour.
and he goes through them so fast, and then the Mammoth Car comes and knocks those out of the way.
Yeah,
And like, okay, I think the Mammoth Car is actually, the reason why the rainforest in the Amazon
which
does
also,
not exist.
if it was made out of gold, it would have bent.
Yeah, it would have. Of course, again, gold alloys. So I mean,
I
there's
guess,
but
that wouldn't be
yeah.
pure gold, which wouldn't be
Right.
worth that
Right.
much.
exactly. But
We could
You
drive
think
ourselves insane trying to
absolutely
figure out
all
the
different things. But yeah,
specifics.
exactly. So
But
no.
any other
I think-
final thoughts on Speed Racer
Um,
coming up here?
Obviously, I've watched this like a gazillion times. If I saw it on, well, first of all, Speed Racer to me is just absolutely fun.
Yeah.
It's always been fun. It always will be fun because as a kid, it was my fantasy about being a race car driver, of course. And then as I got older, it was hilarious because it was so far-fetched. And yet there's still that thing about, wouldn't it be cool to have a car that could do all these things?
Yeah, there is still
So,
a
yeah.
whimsical
Yeah,
mystery
there is.
about it, and
is.
it's just fun.
It is fun.
We get bogged down with analytics here
Absolutely.
on because it's it's
Because
what
it's
we
what we
do.
do.
But
Right.
yeah, I think
So I think so. For me, like if that was on, I might watch it, but I've seen it a million times, and
Yeah.
I have the DVD, so
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't necessarily watch it. But not
I wouldn't
because I
change
didn't
the
like
channel.
it.
I'd leave it on.
I
Honestly,
would leave it on. Yeah.
I have the DVD up in my room now. I'll probably watch a couple episodes
Okay,
while I'm
yeah.
editing my next whatever.
Yeah. There's so much to it. There's so much fun. There's so much nostalgia. Like I say, I have the race car. I have like the cars, middle models of it all over the place. It's a cool looking car. It's a fantasy thing, and it's kind of like the whole James Bond thing. Where as a
Right.
kid, you're like, oh, it'd be cool to be James Bond and have this cool Aston Martin car that
Yeah.
could do all these things and be a secret agent. Kind of a lot of like, at one point, Speed Racer does become like a secret agent. By the way,
Kind of,
there are
yeah.
some things that he does. So that's kind of that whole fantasy thing. But then when you get older, they become actually entertaining because they're hilarious, and the
Yeah.
absurdity of them makes them so funny. The same thing with the James Bond movies for the most part, except for the last James Bond movie. But it really was. It truly is just a fantasy thing, obviously, and really. I would say much more of a male fantasy kind of thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I don't know of many Speed Racer fans that are women. I don't know, but there could be. But I think actually, to be honest with you, one of the things is that but Trixie, I think, is actually a pretty decent female character. And she's pretty strong and everything. And again, like you said, Pops Racer is, he has a temper, and, he was a wrestler. That was one of his things. He used to be a professional
I forgot
wrestler.
about that
Yeah.
until they said it again. And
Yeah,
I was like,
he was a
oh,
pro
yeah,
wrestler, yeah.
how would he get into racing?
I don't,
then? It's
don't
just-
think about it. Don't
okay,
think about
yeah.
it. But no, and then the mom is actually a very nice mom and everything. It's like you
Yeah.
said, it's a very
It's a
actual,
nuclear family.
very
It's-
normal family. Except for Racer X leaving home, that was kind of it.
Yeah.
It was, and that thing. So
Who's the other mechanic boy that we never mentioned?
Sparky.
Sparky.
Sparky is
Is he a family friend or is he a
he's-
brother?
No, he's a family friend.
Okay.
He's just the mechanic. And what's weird is that, you've got these other people. So Sparky is like the only one that's not in the family besides Trixie.
Right.
And so Trixie and Sparky fight a lot. And, they're always like vying for the attention of Speed, basically, as far as like who wants to ride in the car with them and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that kind of makes a fun dynamic. I wish Sparky would have had more like, I wish he would have had more like on air time or whatever.
Yeah.
Not on air, but
Yeah,
more,
airtime. That's
yeah.
fair,
But anyway, so that's another interesting character. But so anyway, you you would watch it if
I would not change the channel. Yeah.
So a lot of fun. So what is our next movie? It's your choice.
It is my choice. Yeah. Because we have one more week here in January.
Okay.
And then we're moving on to Fast February.
Yes.
Which we'll be doing a whole Fast and Furious February.
Family now. I can't.
Which,
do
by
it,
the way,
Toretto.
again, Brent Nagy brought up last night.
Yeah.
He said we were just chatting at the table.
Yeah.
And he was like, "How different would it have been if Dom in Fast and Furious stuck with RX-7s and Japanese cars instead of going to the Charger?" Because the only Japanese car he's ever owned was the RX-7.
Yes, that's true.
And then it's always Chargers and Mopar after that.
Yeah.
What if he had stuck with Japanese stuff? Would have been
very interesting. Also, if Nicolas Cage would have played wait, who's gonna play Dominic Toretto? It was not.
I don't remember.
Yeah, someone else was gonna play. Not Vin
Diesel.
Vin Diesel. Not Vin Diesel was going to be someone else. So we'll have to talk about that obviously in February. But yeah.
So last one. This is a departure from what we normally do.
Okay.
It's a documentary. It just came out on Netflix.
Okay.
It might be a little bit of a tearjerker.
Oh boy.
It's called Schumacher.
So
it's a documentary. It's almost 2 hours long.
Okay.
About Michael Schumacher, the F1 driver.
Oh.
I believe he has 7 world titles.
Okay.
For Ferrari and F1 and stuff. And I'll tell you why it's probably going to be sad.
Okay.
I'll tell you off air because I don't want to spoil anything immediately.
All right.
But it should be an interesting watch. I've been wanting to watch it. I've been into F1 recently with the 2021 season just wrapping up.
Shout out
to Max for winning. Shout out to Lewis for winning. We're actually filming this the night before Abu Dhabi.
Oh, is it?
It's the final race tomorrow.
Are you going over to Grandpa's tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm gonna watch.
Yeah,
it.
that's what Nick was saying. So that's nice.
Yeah.
So
and then I'm filming a car at noon too.
So
RX2.
So yeah, people should know that actually you and Nick. Well, Nick usually goes over to Grandpa's house and they watch F1 together, which is really very cool.
I don't watch the races per se. I keep up with the Instagram and stuff, and I keep track of who's winning.
So tomorrow's like a big race?
Well, tomorrow's a very big race.
Okay.
This is not going to matter for anyone because this is coming out in January, and this happened a month ago.
Is there a Mammoth car?
There's not a Mammoth car. That would be honestly, anything could happen tomorrow because the top 2 guys are completely tied in points, which almost has never happened.
All right.
So they have equal points going into this last race.
Yeah.
So it's literally no one knows who's going to be the champion for the year.
Okay. Wow.
So there's the driver of the year.
Yeah.
And normally the last 2 races, there's a guy that's so ahead in points that he could F off the last 2 races.
Really?
He's still a champion.
Okay.
1 year, Senna was ahead in points, and the next guy, as long as he didn't finish the race, Senna would have won, no matter what. So the first corner of the last race, Senna just T-bones this guy, sends him off track. Neither of them finish the race. They literally T-bone each other in the first lap, but Senna becomes world champion because he just needed the other guy not to win.
Oh my god.
So it's exciting because tomorrow, technically, if Lewis doesn't finish, Max will be champion of the world.
Okay.
So people are thinking that Max might pull one of those moves and just slam into Lewis to make sure he doesn't finish. So
that'll be
could happen. So so this is all in the past. But anyway, F1 documentary, Michael Schumacher.
So is it on Netflix or
it's on Netflix? It's an actual Netflix documentary too, so it's not going to go anywhere.
All right, well, that's good.
Super excited about it. So I've been wanting to watch it for a while. So that'll be next episode. Then we'll get to Fast February. So thank you guys so much for listening.
Exciting,
check us out on YouTube if you're listening on Spotify. Check us out on Spotify if you're listening on YouTube.
Exactly.
I don't think we have anything else to promote at the moment, but
no, I think
thank you guys so
that's
much
about
for listening.
Yep, thanks for listening. We'll leave you with this.